Hey everyone, how are we doing? Welcome to the Blue Abroad show. Special show today as we're in post-season and trade time is light. Joining me by popular demand, my inbox has been full this week with asking for the personal link to his OnlyFans. Joseph, how are we doing, mate? Are you right?
Yes. Back by popular demand, as you've said, there were a few OnlyFans requests last week. I can say I don't have an OnlyFans account for anyone asking this week. We'll just get that out of the way. And yes, good to be back. Big show ahead, big off-season ahead, as Terry said in the comments there. It's going to be packed full of content tonight. We kick it all off.
Oh, 100%. We have got a load to get through. But first of all, as I am talking, scroll bar at the bottom, huge thank you to all the members that do pay their subs every month to make the magic here at Blue Abroad happier and just continue. And good day to all them members individually. Huge personal thank you. And a huge thank you to everyone if you do not pay as well. All of you make the magic we do so worthwhile and keep us coming back for more. So, Joseph, since the last show, how have you been?
Good, mate. Good. It's only been a week. Nothing's changed in Victoria. It's all the same. But yes, thinking deeply about this off season, mate, and we've had a lot of discussion around what it could look like. Had some sort of shirt for me. Yes. You know what? I wasn't going to comment, but Haas, he's got the rug out tonight, and I'll tell you what, it is striking. But no, look, in the last week we've had a lot of discussion, Pom, around what the off season might look like, and it's going to be intriguing tonight to see where the comments land from the viewers in terms of what we put forward.
100%.
What about yourself? I saw a video posted by yourself and Terry that was quite informative. If you guys haven't seen it, I suggest going to have a look at that after this, because Dan's done a mountain of work working out where our list space is at, what our salary cap looks like, and how we can potentially get some players. So Dan, how's your week been? I know you've been quite busy, mate, with all this stuff.
Oh, my inbox has been a little bit fire. I've got to say, I've had some good I've had some good inboxes. Let's put it that way. No, it was good. It was a beautiful. It was a beautiful week. I enjoy the feedback. I think the video though did get taken very literally when it was meant to be more metaphorically. I wasn't suggesting Harry leaves at all. I was suggesting that it's an option to acquire another pick, particularly because a lot of players being discussed are going to be multiple first rounders, and it's one of the shortcut options. But it did its purpose. It got us all talking, and that's what this show really is about. Whether we agree or disagree, it's good, and it's good to know as well that a lot of fans message me personally to say I should go back home. It's quite tough with restrictions. Can't quite get a flight. So you are stuck with me for a while, but it's a good job that everyone knows. But that being said, we do love fan engagement here, whether it's PMing me ticket prices back to the UK or otherwise. And I've got a question for all of the audience. I want you to just keep bombing the chat with players that you want. Ideally, I want one premium player, so someone who's going to be top of the price list, and then your budget alternative to that player. So I'd like you to all just put in best case scenario, so that might be a Clayton Oliver, and then a budget version, a player that you think you could pick up on the cheap. So that would be really good, and we're going to do that at the end. We're going to have a look and discuss them three players individually so we can see what we can get. So the first one we're going to do, the first segment, is what do we want? Trade talk, what do we want? So in the comments, you tell us what type of players you think we need at the club, who fits the bill. And Joe, same question to you. What do you think we actually need in this training period?
Yeah, well, look, we'll leave names. I can see a lot of names popping up, and I love it. But in this part here, I'll probably just focus on position and skill sets, attributes, that sort of thing. So if you look at our last few games, especially between the Collingwood and GWS game, in the second half of the Collingwood game through to the first quarter of the GWS game, we had 56 inside 50 entries for 1 goal. You can't blame the forwards. It's our midfield output, it's our midfield connection. That kicking efficiency is just not good enough going forward. I've had a strong belief all year that we had a player that could actually play that role in Sam Petrevski-Seton, but for whatever reason, David Teague doesn't want to play him up the ground where he was drafted to be played. So if that's going to be the case, we need to bring in someone that's got those elite kicking skills. In order for us to improve that scoring efficiency, because we get the ball in there. It's just a matter of scoring now, and we've seen that when we've lowered the eyes this year, especially against the Bulldogs, we can score in bunches and score really, really quickly. So I think adding someone on the half forward line up on the wing that's got those kicking skills, and Pom, you've got a player a little bit later that we'll talk about that might be able to help us there. And then obviously there's midfielders that we always ask for. We'll touch on that a bit later, but I think a half-back flanker is actually probably our most important at the moment. And Adam Saad's the one, which I'll talk about a little bit more in depth later. But having some zip and dash off the half-back line, someone that's got that defensive part of his game as well. We need someone to step in for the hole that Simo's left. And right now, other than Tom Williamson, if one of him or Doherty go down, we are quite bare, considering Newman is going to be sidelined until halfway next year. So, Adam Saad, priority for me, getting that really good run and dash and gaining meters through really penetrating pinpoint kicks is number one. What about yourself, Pom? What are in terms of attributes, leave the players alone for now, but in terms of attributes, where do you see us targeting in this off-season?
Well, for me, I think when we look at Teague's game plan, first of all, it's a very kick-focused game plan. Now, it's astronomically high compared to years gone by. So, for me, I look at that and I think, obviously, that's the game style that Teague wants to play. He wants to play a fast, very direct territory game, branded football. And we rate really highly in some categories that you would expect a Premiership side to come from. For me, without a doubt, tackle numbers, one of the highest in the league, the fourth in the competition. Inside 50s, fourth in the competition again. Clearances, again, top four. All these moments as well, even disposals against, we are one of the most prudent sides in the comp on it. However, there is some ones that really do, for me, tell the tale, particularly in these 5-goal swings that have happened a staggering 9 times this year. And that is one of them. Even though we're fourth in tackles, we rank 17th in turnover from tackles. So that's just telling us that the tackles aren't coming at the right time and also forcing the turnover like you would expect them to do. We also rank clear last in actual effective disposals. And that is a worry as well for a side that is kicking heavy. We also rank 17th in stopping scores against from midfield turnovers. This is where we lose the ball, not where most sides do, and that is in the forward 50. We lose it in the centre of the park. And as we know, that's suicidal in a professional game of AFL now, because that's where teams hurt you. They love launching from that centre circle. So for me, that being said, I'd like to see a real pressure midfielder in there. Some guy that is a bull, that is as hard as a cat's head, that wrestles the game back for me, just wrestles it back. So whoever that is, we know Jack Graham was probably the guy penciled in for that. And looking at Nick Austin's early sniffs at players, it seems to be that type of thing. The other issue I've got with our club is, you've touched on it, our inside 50s. They are abysmal. We have a high ratio of inside 50s, but when it's averaging out at the moment at 28 inside 50s to a score back end of the year, that's going to punish you. And if we look at this little graphic that's come up, this is where we stand today. So at the moment with the delistings, average age 24.1, which I can tell you is in the Premiership window already, even though we've jettisoned some of the older players. teams have come and won a flag from there. Our average games, it's on the low side, but it's by no means a scary proposition. Interesting one is the estimated cap space. So what we've done is the club has publicly declared we've been at 95% of our salary cap. We've done a very brief estimation of what these players are on using data, using football reports. So we can estimate there's around 2.2 million with the extra salary cap we've got disposal, and we've got them 3 first-round picks. And obviously next year's picks as well into play. We have nothing owing at the moment. So that being said, Joe, we've given our thoughts. Let's see what the wonderful fans are having a look at on their type of player they want to bring in. And it kind of looks for me that it's very similar. Here, Logan Jennings, we need 2 A-graders that are elite two-way runners with foot skills and good disposal efficiencies. So very good summarization. I think we've combined what we both said and found that position. I think he's spot on there. We got Channel Blaino, Bruce Stool, Alex Chivalenko, Stephen Kernahan, John Nichol, Kuda, and Greg Williams types. I think that's very good. Interesting one here, Mark Dallatore, Nick Newman. There is someone that we do bring back that does fit, you would say, the categories of player we've disposed, and particularly from half-back.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good one, Pom, while we're on Newman. I mean, I know we're going to talk about players that we'd like to bring in from other clubs, but, we've got to keep in mind we're going to have some big off-season acquisitions from our own crop. You got Charlie Curnow, you got Caleb Marchbank, Nick Newman's another, Liam Stocker, those types, and Jack Silvani as well, that barely played any football this year. That's actually quite a handy footballer for us when you think about it, especially with that mid-forward connection that we're talking about. That's 5 players. It's very similar to the Sam Doherty situation last year, where he hadn't played football for 2 years, and he's arguably one of the better off-season acquisitions, if you want to put it that way, for any club. He came in, didn't miss a beat, but he hadn't given us any output for the last 2 years. So absolutely, Josh Dolan's just basically said that there with Charlie Newman and Stocker back. Plus, we get to see Brody Kemp. That's another one who hasn't had a game yet, but by all reports, he's going to be an absolute gun for our football club. So yeah, look, outside of people that we can bring in from other clubs, we've got a lot of quality talent coming back. There are question marks over a few of them with injuries and whatnot, Charlie being one. But by all means, it's going to be an exciting off season by all accounts.
I think Nick Newman as well is someone that is heavily forgotten about when we do talk about old players, because if you actually look at his numbers, there is only 50 games difference between him and Sard. And the big glaring difference is that Nick Newman ran the 20 metres in 2.96 as opposed to Adam Sard's 2.88. But if you actually look at their footballing numbers, Nick Newman has better almost just about everything in disposals, kicking efficiency. He's a very similar footballer. He just lacks probably that first 10 metres in pace. But as a footballer, very solid footballer and someone that we've probably forgotten about this year. Yeah,
correct. And it's a good point. There's a name that keeps coming up in these comments. Thanks, Tez. There's a name that keeps off you go, Pom.
Toronto, running down the ring. That is who we need.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, to your point, across halfback, we do have Newman. There's a name that keeps popping up in Alex Witherden, who we'll be doing a player spotlight on in the coming week or so. Absolutely. He could be, I don't know if you call him a budget option. He's still going to cost a little bit because he's a very, very handy footballer. But, we do have Newman. Do we need Sard? Who knows? Sard's the elite player that we're after. But if that falls through, absolutely, there's players like Witherden there ready to go as second picking. So, yeah, I like where the thinking's at.
So, obviously, we'll come to the next segment of how do we get these players. So we know what we need. I think that's everyone seems to be on the same page in the audience as well. We've probably an extra pair of hands down the back as well, with some kind of selling point, whether that be elite halfback disposal efficiency or a bit of elite zip and run. Now, obviously, you can't have everything for nothing. So let's have a look. So if we bring that graphic up again of what we do have with the Carlton monogram, please, Shad, so we can look. We've obviously got 7, 27 and 45 with a future first, second, third, fourth. We've got very good picks. You would have said as well, pick 7 in this year's draft, where a lot of the talent is landlocked. And you could say 3 of the top 6, you could put an argument that they're going to go to their actual NGA homes, which the teams don't have them picks. So and 7.
I think it was something like the top, from memory, it was something like in the top 40, there's 16 or 18, maybe even more, tied to academies, father sons. Like it's an extremely compromised draft at the top end, and there's a lot of talent that'll go deep as a result of that. So whether, to your point, whether pick 7 we actually need, or whether we can trade up, trade down and still land some really significant talent in the back end of the draft or in the mid rounds of the draft. Very, very good point, Pom.
Well, based on the AFL projections of talent, now obviously it's slightly followed because we haven't had this year to look at them. So this also makes it an interesting proposition for a second reason. We always have 5 players in the last year of juniors that tear it up. Liam Stocker would be a great example. Another example would be Clayton Oliver, was another player that came from the later picks. He was a late first rounder, shot up the draft rankings with his back end form. So that would also give you a good argument that at pick 18, a pick 19, potentially you might pick up this year's Noah Anderson, this year's Connor Rosie, someone that has had a real good back end that we just don't know about because he hasn't had a year of growth. But also 4 of the top 10 are landlocked to clubs. So effectively, for a club that doesn't have one of them picks, pick 7 could be pick 4 in another lifetime. And the clubs would know that. So if you're a club that doesn't have it, another example as well, I'm going to throw this out to the audience, is Fremantle this year have been stiffed because Carlton kept bidding on their academy players. So they've had a punishment this year for owing the AFL money from draft pick value. Now, Western Bulldogs, pick 1 without a shadow of a doubt is their young player. And he is an absolute superstar.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Ugal Hagen. I'm not sure.
Ugal Hagen, who is, well, when you build like this, your draft profile says this, shades of Buddy Franklin and Bontempelli, you know you're a pretty tasty footballer. So there's another club that might look at pick 7, who might look at a future first. So next year they have got a pick and they might entertain that idea. So it's always good thinking this year, although it's compromised, these picks, if you play your cards right, could be something big. So on that face value, they're very good picks already, but effectively they're probably pick 4, pick 23 and pick 39. So suddenly, that is a very good draft, Arsenal, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and I mean, if you look at some of the talent from last year, you brought up today around St Kilda's strategy. They offloaded all their picks for really elite talent from other clubs, but still managed to land who I considered going into last year's draft a top 25 pick in Jack Vitale. They landed him quite late, and we saw what he could do in a few games this year. Very handy footballer, knows how to find it, knows how to play his role. So by all means, especially with a compromised draft at the front end of the draft this year, towards the mid rounds, there's going to be talent. There will 100% be talent there to pick up. So like the take.
And I think that's quite interesting. Wowdy's hit where I was alluding to. You've got to remember Nick Austin is a huge part of the Doggies. And I was reading an interesting part about Nick Austin at the Doggies. He actually overruled, it said, his recruitment department on the pick of Bailey Smith. Actually overruled them and just literally locked the pick in. So he's obviously highly rated by that. And he will also know that they're landlocked with this pick. So he's obviously got the connections there as well to maybe break this up into something, maybe snag a player. We know the Doggies have got very similar players, what everyone is mentioning we need. And
One that springs to mind would be Lockie Hunter there, which we're not going to talk about tonight, but there will be a player spotlight on him too in the off-season. I think in the Zach Merritt type mold, if we're going to be dealing with the doggies, if we want an accumulator, if we want someone that knows how to find it, yeah, right, he's had his off-field issues, but you know what? Who hasn't these days? Look, premiership player, 100-odd games under his belt, you know, in the right age bracket, 24, 25, I think he is. You know, averages mid-20s. In his career, I'm pretty sure, from memory. We need an accumulator in the middle if we're going to be dealing with the dogs. If it's not Merritt, if it's not Kelly, if it's not one of those types, he's just as good, if not better, in some instances.
So I think to answer the question and put it in the comments, do you think we have the trade stock at the moment to get what's required? If you look at what Nick Austin's doing, and I think it's quite interesting, you can only go on rumours, but he's going after players that are either out of contract or have massive issues at the contract table. And I think that's very wise because you are genuinely get these players a lot cheaper than you do a player that has signed a long-term contract. So effectively, you could get 2 or 3 of these questions answered and suddenly them 2 first rounders are intact, glistening in the sun. And if that happens, it's a very good draft strategy, isn't it? It's a very good trade strategy to have.
Very, very. And, yeah, I mean, it's not something that we were used to with Sauce in charge. Obviously, he liked going to the draft. He liked, I mean, we saw it last year with Papley, but, you know, the theatre and the theatrics of Sauce, you know, stringing deals out and posturing at the trade table. Everyone knows about it. Austin's going after players. He's making it known. And it's the sort of cutthroat attitude that I think you need as a list manager and as a recruiter, especially in modern football. If you're going to keep up with the other teams, if you want to take that next step, you got to get stuff done early. We've already seen it with Williams. He's pretty much signed. He's just going to pick up that pen and sign on the dotted line. You know, I heard a report today that we went after Saad even harder today after we heard that that things may have taken another dip with the Essendon negotiations. These are things that need to be happening, and it's great to see Austin going after players that look vulnerable, if you want to call it that. They look vulnerable from a contract standpoint. It's great.
Oh, 100%. And I think if you listen to Sam Edmonds' report, that sounded like he was talking about it was based on the news they got yesterday, that Saad had sworn back into the Essendon camp and we've come with a counter offer. And I think that's very important because we're starting to ruffle feathers, ruffle the old feathers, turn people's heads. And at the end of the day, it's an old English Premier League attitude as well. You put that public deal out there and the player starts double questioning himself. Am I getting a good offer from you? Are you looking after me? Do you really want me? Because Carlton have just come back with 50k more. You've just accepted it. You do it. So obviously a big part of this for me, it's important that we're active and we're being proactive, and it seems we're looking for it. So for me, I totally agree. If we can have these picks intact and the futures as well, let's not forget them. We've got, if you suddenly get Saab for a second and maybe a late pick swap for someone they're interested in, they've got a couple of father and sons. Could be a huge trade period when you've got 2 players locked away and 2 first rounders to mess around with. Could be good.
Absolutely. And you, like you've alluded to, we don't necessarily need to use the picks unless you want something that's A-grade, elite, Rolls-Royce type players. There's a lot of free agents this year that are quite gettable, and I think you're going to go through a couple of yourself, Pom, in your bargain bin segment. But yeah,
I'm the common guy. I'm the common guy. I'm not like Terry living in Armadale. I live in Clyde North, so all around.
Yes. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Look, if we can take some of these picks to the draft, even better. You know, there's a few people in the comments that have alluded to, you know, some kids in the draft. Will Phillips is one. I think someone's brought up. I just saw the comment. Sorry. Here we go. Ben Lawson. Apparently, Will Phillips in this year's draft is meant to be a work rate freak, expected to be pick 9. Absolutely. But, you know, do we need more kids? We've got Kemp, we've got Stocker, we've got those types. We've gone to the draft for 4 years. if we want to take that step, there's players this year that if we go hard enough, especially considering COVID, so this is a big thing. COVID has brought so much uncertainty to players' livelihoods, right? You got to think about it this way, right? It's a job for them, like our jobs, Pom, in our daily lives, in anyone's daily lives. You want job security right now. You don't know what the future is going to bring. If a club is coming to these players, let's say it's a Zach Merritt who's coming out of contract and he's going, you know what, I want to be locked in for 6 years because I don't know what COVID's going to throw at us over the next 6 years. I want to be locked into a contract that's going to give me some serious security. It's not going to take much to swing them, and it's not going to take much to swing the club to actually let them go. So this could be the year. It could be that year where it's like, if there's someone that you want in that Rolls-Royce category, go for it. You've gone to the draft for long enough. Go for it. Use your first-round picks. Use a second-round pick. Don't be scared. We don't need more kids. If there's players that want to come to us, get them at all costs. That's my take on it, Pom. I know we kind of differ a little bit there, but if there's ever a time where you want to give security to players that are looking for a new home, this is the time to capitalise. Absolutely.
I think you're spot on. I think it's no surprise as well. The players we've been linked with and the clubs that we're being linked with are in a bit of a transitional phase as well. Melbourne look like a kind of club that need a few little bits and pieces. They also don't have much raw youth coming through. So they'll be a club that's probably in that transition. Essendon, we know, are a complete shit show, and it's great to see. And I think Owry as well, like, kind of just backs up what you're saying. We don't need to look. We don't need to look at our future picks. We've done the groundwork now. So future picks could be the avenue we go down for these trades. And I'd agree with him. I think Sauce had that plan as well. I always thought last year and this year were Sauce's wonderful futures. It was go hard now. We've got the kids in. We'll just throw a few more comments in here before we move on. Luke James, I love your glasses. Did you get them from Fake Saver? I knew you'd get a comment about your glasses.
We spoke about this. We spoke about this before the show, Tom. I know. It's bold. It was bold from me to change the glasses, but thank you, Luke.
I was bullying him off camera, so brilliant. Well done. I'm proud you did that. And Curtis Delorio, I hope I haven't massacred that. I had a go. Got enough kids, need more 26 to 30-year-olds. And that alludes to the video that me and Terry did the other day as well. That was the key category of players that we probably do lack. Crazy Australian, we don't need to go to the draft. We need to do what St Kilda did. Oh, some people have watched the video and agree with it. I love it. That was the idea. Andrew Scott, what do we do with McGovern? I just want him off our books. He looks like he could open the door for you at training. I reckon he'd do that, though.
Oh, no. Give him a chance. Come on, he's been on our list for 2 years, guys. McGovern's one that I know he's frustrating. I know how frustrating it is. He needs a full preseason. He needs to remodel his game. I think with Charlie coming back next year, he's not that second forward as well. He was second forward a lot of the time this year, which I don't think he can play. If you look at his time in Adelaide, he had Taylor Walker and Josh Jenkins, along with Tom Lynch ahead of him. He was essentially the fourth forward at times. When you're taking the fourth best defender, of course he's going to be a better player than what he showed this year. He's not a forward that can take on that second or first defender, which we saw a lot of the time this year. We need depth in our tools if we're going to go with McGovern up forward. Otherwise, throw him back. We saw him do it in the last game. We spoke about it a little bit last week. Throw him back, see what he can do. He's not going to be his brother by any standard. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But he might be able to show a little bit. We don't know. I think it's too early to pull the plug on him. Way too early.
Well, I'll respectfully agree with you there. But let's go on to the next segment. We've got a new segment that we're going to call Joe's Elites.
Yes. So I'm going to go through, and Shad Daddy is going to bring up. He's going to bring up the player profiles as we go. But basically, I'll go through 3 players. Not to say that these are 3 players that we absolutely must get. I think if we get one of them, it'd be good. If we get both, it would probably make us top 4 contenders. But and then Pom, you're gonna take on Pom's bargains afterwards. And guys, just as we go, give us your thoughts on our take. Give us your thoughts on other players that might be in these categories. But yeah, let's Shad, let's go with the first. If I click, will that work? Yes.
No, that
No.
no. So who's your first one?
All right, let's go Adam Sard, Chad.
Adam Sard. There we are. Hey up, Sardi.
There we go. Got him. So, spoke about him last week, but and spoke about him a little bit earlier in this show. You know, the guy is exactly what we need with Simo going out. Even without Simo going out, he's not a player that you would say, I don't want. Like, if Adam Sard's on the table, you go after Adam Sard. He breaks lines, which we just haven't had other than Doherty for so many years. Willow showed it a little bit this year, but Willow's still young. This guy's played, over 100 games of football. He's in the right age bracket of that 23 to 28. You can see his disposals there, so I think it's a bit hard to read on this small screen, but I think it's around 18.9 for his career. Elite kicking efficiency, and just disposal efficiency overall at 83% is well above what anyone produced for us this year on a consistent basis. It's not just, I said last week on the show, if you've got time, go find Adam Sard highlights on YouTube. Don't watch him for his pace or his kicking. Watch him for his defensive efforts as well. He's a freak in terms of chase down tackles, in terms of putting on pressure when the ball's in his area and someone's trying to attack that football. So he ticks all the boxes. He's not going to be Simo. He's not going to be that warrior, but he's going to be within that mold of what we've now lost. And without him, very difficult to see who on our list might be able to have that impact straight up. I've seen names like Stocker that's been brought up off the halfback line. Absolutely. Like, I think Stocker could be a freak for the future, but the kid's only played 3 games. Like, give him a spell. That's so much pressure to put on a kid to step into a role that Simo's just vacated. Nick Newman's not going to be available till halfway next year. We need someone to step in straight away. I think Sard should be that player. For me, in terms of a rough trade value, from what we're hearing, it could be an early second, late first round pick. We've got pick 27, as Pom said before, which we could easily just give. But why not try and turn that first pick into 2 late first picks and use that as a bit more currency, which comes into my next point. And for the next player. So if we were to use pick 7 and trade up, and I've seen someone in the comments, and the name escapes me for the moment. I think it's Wowdy. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It's been saying, let's trade that pick 7 for Geelong's pick 14 and pick 16 or 17, whatever it is. Absolutely, because Shad, if you bring up the next player, Josh Kelly, if you want the Rolls Royce of the competition, if you want to bolster your midfield with an absolute A-grader, Josh Kelly's the one. I don't know how else to say other than this guy's just a freak. He's got outside pace, kicking's unbelievable, knows how to find the football, kicks goals as a midfielder, which we don't have a lot of. But based on that pick 7 swap with Geelong, if we get 2 late first round picks, because they've got 3 this year, based on some trading that they did last year by my belief, I think that's right. I think they've got 3 first rounders. If we trade that pick 7 and get them to trade up for 2 of their late first rounds, what it allows us is to go, okay, if we need to give up a first rounder for Sard, there's pick 16. GWS, we've got this year's first in pick 14, and we've got next year's first with wherever that lands. There's 2 first rounders for Kelly. We want him, pay him what he's worth. We know what the guy's worth. We know it's the player that we need. It's that outside run. It's that polish. It's that player that we don't have with the experience that he's got. And absolutely throw the kitchen sink at him, not just from a draft pick perspective or trade value, throwing players like Dow, whoever you want to throw in. When it comes to the contract table, pay this guy what he's worth. Pay him what he's worth. If we're paying Zach Williams $800,000 and we've got 2.2 mil in the cap, Pom, this guy's worth $1 million plus minimum. And I would pay it in a heartbeat. So
I couldn't disagree with you. I mean, I really couldn't, because this is a guy that, me, I love transfer trade rumors. I get excited. He's someone that you get excited about. And I would actually say this guy is one of the most underrated players in the comp. If you actually run a basketball calculation of impact per game, they run a stat impact per game, which would be the equivalent of AFL of tackles, disposals to goals. He would actually be the highest rated player in the comp. So really, this guy is as A grade gets. He is someone that you sell down from, and don't worry about it. elite.
Absolutely. He's just, it's top rung. It's top rung. And if we want to be bold, if we want to really take that next step, there is no reason why, as a club with Nick Austin at the helm and showing how bold he's already been, there is no reason why, as a club, we can't go to GWS this season and say, we want this kid. We want him. And he's young. He's 23, I'm pretty sure from memory. He's only 23. He's had a little bit of injury history, not too much, but his output is just quality, 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 and it's not a player that we have coming through our list at the moment. So that's Josh Kelly. I think I've made my point. I'll move on to the last now. Jack Petrocelli, please. Thank you. Oh, look at this. It's a stitch up. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well done, Chad. We made a joke off there, and he's got me.
Well
done. Solid work.
Well done. Well done. Look, he's not elite. If you want to, if this is my elite segment, but he is elite in one area of his game, and that is absolute pace. This guy is lightning with ball in his hand, and he's a small forward. And there's been so many people in the comments tonight that have said we need a small forward. Absolutely, we do. Eddie's got one more year left. I doubt he's even got a year left in him, to be honest. He might have half a year of good football before we see him, inevitably fall off a cliff. But Eddie's there for another reason. He's there as a mentor, and I think he's played that role brilliantly. We need a small forward that's coming through. We don't have one. We've got Zach Fisher, which is great. Michael Gibbons, I think he plays his best football in the midfield, so I don't want to see him as a small forward permanently. Cunningham, he's in and out of the side because of his injuries. Petrocelli is one at West Coast that is in and out of the side because he just can't get in. They've got an elite forward line, and he's got so many players in front of him. Seen him a little bit this year in a few games. Last year, broke onto the scene and just electrified the competition with his pace. If you want a small forward, and this is something that could be done at the back end of trade period, and I would be so disappointed in the club if we didn't at least ask the question of Jack Petrocelli. He's not going to cost you much because he hasn't played much football, but what he'll bring to our side is pace. He'll essentially complete pace across every line. We brought in Williams, who gives us pace through the middle, based on what we've been told about him spending more time in the middle. If we get Saad, that's pace out of the back line. We don't have pace in the forward line. Jack Petrocelli is it. And for me, he's not going to really cost you more than maybe an early third-round pick. Late second, if we're talking that you want to just get him and not have to negotiate too hard. Early third round pick for me would be sort of where he sits. Knows how to find the goals. Knows how to get his hands on the ball as a small forward. His pressure acts as a small forward are right up there as well. Just would disappoint me if we couldn't get this. If we at least couldn't get a look at this guy. There's another one of my mates, Julian Casano, in the comments earlier said Jared Cameron. He is a freak, Jules. I agree, but I don't think Jared Cameron's gettable at this point. I think he is a priority for West Coast to keep on their list with Willie Rioli out as well for a couple of years. Willie Rioli may be back next year, which could be interesting. But Petrocelli for me. Pom.
No, I love it. And the reason, just to answer the fans' questions in the comments, and we know he's re-signed. That's why he's in the elites, because you are going to have to pay a bit of a premium. He has got a lot of his contracts left, and we know what that does to it. People loving your selections thus far. The petrol on through them. I think some people have been a bit hard on Petrocelli, but where did he say? Lekdog had a good one here, because I've been waiting for this one. Should the Blues get someone like Brendan Matera? I'm surprised he hasn't been mentioned more, actually. But I love these elites, and I think if you're going to spend money, these are the type of players that you're throwing money at, players that are instantly going to make you better, particularly in the way of Kelly. He's instantly going to make you better. He's going to be instantly an upgrade on anything most clubs have got. He's one of them players that would walk into the 22 of just about any AFL club without even asking a question.
Absolutely.
And I think so. So what Pom did, because Pom's from the poor, impoverished council estates of the North England, he specialises on scrimping and saving and stealing something just out of the shop corner's reach. So we're looking at Pommy's bargains. So the first one we're going to look at is my boy, Isaac Smith. Here he is. He's a good-looking youth, is old Isaac. Very good-looking jaw. Now, Isaac Smith, for me, is someone that isn't going to cost a lot at all from salary package as well. It's anticipated that he's looking for, based on an interview I saw this week, evidently the hold-up on a contract talk is he wants 2 years. That's all he wants. He wants to see himself to the retirement age. Now, Isaac Smith, for those who are Carlton fans, know that this guy kills it when he plays Carlton as well. He's got a nasty habit of breaking it. But what he does is he's going to come at next to nothing. You're only looking at the salary, and you're probably looking at the anticipated value of this guy, a late third, fourth compo coming Hawthorn's way. It's not going to be a lot at all. 17.3 touches. He's got a very good disposal efficiency as well for someone that averages such a high average meters per possession. His average possession is 28.2 meters. So that says that he's kicking it a decent amount, 66%. Now, to me, what he brings is two things. It ups our age profile of that midfield. It brings a plethora of experience, an absolute abundance of experience for probably playing with one of the best in franchise history in AFL. He's been there, he's done that. He's instantly commands respect to the dressing room. And he's someone that I think, someone like Sam Walsh, who is playing that role at the moment for Carlton, is going to learn an abundance of. And it gives us time to put into Brodie Kemp, into your Sam Philp, into your Sam Ramseys, these guys that are coming up next. It gives you them 2 years to learn off a guy that knows what he's doing. So for me, it's cheap, no injuries really to speak of. He's going to bring you a world of experience from day one.
Absolutely. And it's not only that, Pom, it's someone with premiership experience, premiership credentials. We as a club don't have anyone with those credentials right now. I don't care about this guy's age. He's 31, whatever. He's got 2-3 years left in him of really good football because he's just absolutely silky. He's a left footer, which a few people have brought up, which we don't have too many of as well, coming out of the middle. And they are just, for whatever reason, left footers are usually so elite with ball in hand. Pom, spot on, mate. Spot on with Isaac Smith. I think he'll bring so much to the football club, not just on the field with his performances, but the way that he can mentor those around him and those kids coming up is going to be invaluable.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. And the next guy I've brought in is really the pressure act king, and that is Jack Viney. Now, a lot of talk at the moment with Clayton Oliver, but if you want a TAFE version of Clayton Oliver, this is it. Now, for me, when I look at the Carlton list and we look at the stats that I listed earlier, the big problem that we had was our ability to turn tackles into turnovers, our big issue to impact pressure acts in the quarters where we turned over goals. This guy here answers them bills. And again, he falls into the category that you're looking at compensation picks as long as you match your salary. So for me, Viney answers them bills. Now, if you listen to me and Rocco, we're big on Hearts of Cat's Head players, someone to come in and take the pressure off some of the younger blokes. This guy is perfect age profile for Carlton. But the big one about Jack Viney is if this guy, if you were owed money by someone and you bought a dodgy car off eBay and the guy wouldn't give you your money back, Jack Viney's the type of bloke that goes round there, brings you your car back, brings you double your money, and that bloke's wife is now his girlfriend. This guy is all that and more. He takes what he wants and he makes no excuses. And that's what I love about him. We look at these numbers. High kick accuracy, he's 71 by foot. So he's got a very high kick. His tackles are absolutely insane. 4.2, averaging a turnover just under 1 tackle. So that is phenomenal. He's guaranteeing you a turnover per game on his own boot. 21 pressure acts per game, a natural leader, and he suits the kicking style that team plays. So for me, he works twofold. He's going to bring in that muscle. He's going to allow Cripper maybe that time to float forward, which Teague seems to allude to. He wants to have that Nat Fife at Carlton, someone who can attack different ends of the ground. And for me, a huge thing about Jack Viney as well is he allows to protect them players as well. He's going to protect your Sam Walshes. He's going to protect your Liam Stockers, your Brody Kents when they are floating through the midfield. He accepts no rubbish and no nonsense. And for me, he's someone that I'm excited about.
Love it, Pom. Love it. There was a question from Helena Petru asking why he's in the bargain bin, I think. And it's because he's a restricted free agent. We give up nothing for him other than a contract. So he doesn't cost us any picks. Doesn't cost us a trade unless Melbourne match. Then obviously we will. But right now, it's put a contract in front of the guy and convince him to come to the club. Absolutely agree with your take, Pom. I think he's a tough nut that we haven't had since Mitch Robinson. When you think about it, I think Robbo was the last one on our list that I can remember. Jed Lamb showed it a little bit against Sicily in that game against Hawthorn. Yeah, right, fair enough. But Robbo did it week in, week out. And I think Robbo, I watch him when I watch Brisbane and I'm thinking he'd be so good to have on our list right now. I still have him on our list. Jack Viney's that player. And he can be that player again for us. Just absolutely hard at the football, hard at the man, will stand up for his teammates. And yeah, will really, really lift that midfield for sure.
And the final one, and this fits, for me, this one was a tough one. This guy is probably your TAFE Jack Viney. So he's a very raw player, but he's a player with a very high ceiling and someone that's behind a plethora of talent at the moment. And that is none other than Charlie Constable. Now, Charlie Constable doesn't get the game time he wants. Now, I was listening to an interview with Paddy Dangerfield, and Paddy Dangerfield at the start of this year was raving about him, absolutely raving about Charlie Constable, his ability to be, and he used the words, and I found this interesting, to be their Cripps. He specifically said he could be their Cripps. Now, what Charlie Constable brings is he isn't the quickest player in the comp, but he's by no means a slouch. Looking at his GPS data, I already participate what our Carlton fans are going to say. He's very slow. He would actually be the third quickest midfielder on our books by his numbers. So he's deceptively quick. But what he does bring us is he fits that age profile of all them midfielders. And he's one of these big-bodied, brute strength, modern day brute strength type midfielders. And I think what it allows us to do as well, and some people may hate me for this, is he also gives you the ability to jettison some of the same type of midfielders we've got. If you look at our list predominantly, people talk about what we have too much of. You hear inside midfielders, but you look at a lot of our inside midfielders, they're not natural inside midfielders. You would say now that Dow and players like that are more outside in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of years particularly. So this guy here instantly comes in. We've seen how good Mr. Setterfield has been. This gives you another guy to come in and help. And for me, it allows us to use Kemp where his best position is, which is as a free floater. If you actually look at what Kemp did, a lot of people are talking about his ability on the ball, but you actually look at his numbers. He was the only player in AFL history to win best on ground in every position on the AFL field. So Kemp was nominated for Team of the Week in the back line, in the key position, on the ball, on the wing, up forward. Not many players can attest to doing that. So for me, that allows Kemp to be used in a better position as well, because I don't want Kemp anywhere near the ball for the next 2 years. I want him to free flow. And I could see him. This Charlie Constable allows you to do that. Him and Setterfield together are very, very good. You've got one who's elite with his handling very clean. And this guy's more going to be like your Jack Viney type. He's going to scrap. He's going to wrestle the ball. He's going to turn the ball, get the ball turning over. And he has very high pressure acts for someone who's played limited games. He would be a great budget alternative should you want to pick up another strong Oxen-like player. You could go a lot worse than this bloke.
Agree wholeheartedly, Pom, and he's not going to cost much at all considering he can't get any game time at the moment. So I think he'll add. And look, he may not be starting 22 every week, right? Depending on who you've got coming through and who breaks through next year, he may not be starting 22 every week, but he's a very good depth player to get. He's not another Billy Smets. He's not another Reece Palmer. Oh, have we dropped out there? No. Sorry, my camera keeps dropping in and out. It's a bit weird. He's not another Billy Smets. He's not another Reece Palmer. He is a genuinely very, very good depth player that could be on our list and be in that top 25. So he's kind of pushing play. And the other thing is he'll push players in the starting 22 every week to keep their spot, which is something that we haven't had for a few years. He's the guy that at reserves level or VFL level, whatever it's going to be next year, he's going to give those performances week in, week out, and knock on the door every single week to go, I want a game this week. Who hasn't performed at senior level? So I like it, Pom. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. And there are three roughly alternatives. Not sign all three of them, but they're the kind of players that we've presented some options. Now we're going to end the show with 15 minutes to go with your wonderful questions. And I've seen some flying, which is really good. Now you can ask questions at this stage about anything. It doesn't have to be about the trade. Throw your rumours in. But what we'll do is we'll answer some questions and cover up your top threes that we've got a lot of. So let's have a look. The first player that has been a huge one, and I'm actually impressed here. We've got a lot of budget ones from the audience, and I love budget. But here's one that is very poignant. Tyson Stengel. Now, for me, one of the big selling points of Tyson Stengel is they call him Baby Eddie in the training room because he's a big Eddie fan and he reminds a lot of the coaching group and playing group of Eddie. Now, we know he's had a bit of issues. It's his second incident, but we have got to specify this. The first incident was proved mental health, and this second one appears the same, and they have both accepted the mental health help that they need. So for me, I'm going to just put devil's advocate out there. We know Eddie, when you speak to Eddie, had a lot of issues while he was at Carlton off the field. And he says how the club helped him, get him on the straight and narrow, and he feels now responsible to be the voice to the younger generation. He would definitely be someone that could look after Stengel and really be an inspiration to Stengel, not just because he's Indigenous, but because he's been through the same path. He's had them issues and he's overcome them. So I like this because he's going to be free. He's going to be cheap. And this could be the making because there is no getting away from the fact that when you watch Eddie play and Eddie and Stengel, there's similarities, especially when they played us. You can see he's got that X factor.
I watched Stengel. I watched a fair bit of Adelaide this year, Pom. For whatever reason, I'm not a big Crows fan. It was good to watch them lose so many games, but I watched Stengel a hell of a lot, and him and McAdam up forward were seriously exciting to watch. I love Shane McAdam, but Stengel knows how to find the goals quite regularly. Very, very regularly, and knows how to find his own football too. So he's not just one that waits for it. He is very, very Eddie about the way he plays. Quick, electrifying, always looking for that ground ball get when it's near him. Look, if he's free, absolutely take the punt. We'd be stupid not to. He's got Eddie there as a mentor, like you said. Eddie over the years has come out for many players that may have stuffed up early on in their careers. He came out even earlier this year around Elijah Taylor with that COVID breach as well. And just said,
I do believe they are related.
Sydney Stack also, sorry. He came, sorry.
I do believe they are related loosely. I'm not too sure if it's nephew, uncle, cousin.
Okay, there you go.
I'm pretty sure Betts and Stengel, they are related at somewhere.
We've got someone just here has said that they believe Lawrence 27536597 has said Tyson is Eddie's nephew. So I would probably have to fact check that, but if that's the case.
No, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they are related. They are distant related because I know. Yeah, Helen has confirmed. I know that he actually was in his first year lived with Eddie,
Yeah,
and like took him under his wing. So that's why I think for me would be a great get. Would be a great
love it.
get. Something cheap, especially he's got a few with him having his second discrepancy. He's probably someone that Adelaide are very good at letting players go that are unhappy, and I think it would probably be a great opportunity for him to come over here as well.
Love it. There's a couple of comments here from Lee Innes and Ben Lawrence around assistant coaches, and I think it'd be remiss of us, Pom, not to talk about the importance of those sort of off-season pickups as well. Michael Voss has been thrown up by Ben, and I think that'd be a good get as an assistant coach. Justin Lepic was another one that got thrown up. I think he's actually stepped away from the game though, so I'm not sure how much chance you've got of signing him. And there was another one here that I saw, Dean Solomon. I don't know if that's taking the piss or not, but yeah, look, assistant coaches, like they're just as good in terms of
about Dean Solomon on this show.
Assistant coaches are just as important in terms of off-season pickups as any player. So I don't know, again, with COVID, I don't know what the vacancy positions are going to look like, if there are going to be any vacancies, if it's just going to be a bit of a cut, unfortunately, to some assistant coaches, as we've already seen. But if there is room, absolutely the club should be looking at it.
I think Solomon, for me, would be a great pickup. Personally, he's one person that I have been pushing. Left Gold Coast. We know Stewie Dew has said that he offered to take a pay cut to keep him. Like, he was highly rated. He's been really credited with their midfield structure and their ability to impact in the midfield. And that is one area, particularly at the start of the season, that they really dominated. They did.
Agreed.
If you look at the one game, they absolutely dominated them without Raul for 2 quarters. So it's something that is very good. He's got a great relationship as well. He has credited with turning that place around from an atmosphere that was get me the hell out of here in the Lynch and May days to this is a happy atmosphere. This is what we want. We want to be here. So for me, I think, yeah, that's a great one. For me, I also think that Hodge would be a great get. Voss would be a great get. Brings in the Premiership experience. And I agree with that. We'll throw a couple more to come up with. Lek Dog here. I like this one. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. You do need some protection down the back as replacements. And he's gone with Lewis Melican. I don't mind that as a depth player. And I do think that is something I think will make us a better team if we have better depth, better replacements, because it does 2 things. It puts pressure on you. I was listening to a Luke Hodge interview the other day, and he was saying that you used to come off the field when Box Hill were doing well and check the Box Hill scores, and you used to be relieved if your replacement did badly. And that's the atmosphere that you want to build at Carlton. Who's my replacement? He's had 30 touches. I've had 20. I'm out of the club. Very good idea, I think, there, because Lewis has got all the talent in the world.
Agree. And I think with the delisting of Ben Silvani and Hugh Goddard particularly, we are a little bit exposed down back. I know Levi can swing back there. Maybe that's what the club has planned. Mitch McGovern might swing back there at times. But Lewis Melican's one that will probably come on the cheap too, considering he was sort of in and out of the side this year as well up at Sydney. So I like that one, definitely in terms of depth. I think we've probably got time for one more, Pom. Adam Gould. Should we swap pick 7 for Geelong's 15 and 16 or Brisbane's 18 and 19? I think, like we said earlier, I think you do that deal if you're certain that you need an extra first rounder. I think if you're not certain that you can get a Josh Kelly or a Zach Merritt or an Ollie Wines and you need that second rounder for that, if you're not certain of that, if that's not locked in, you keep pick 7 because pick 7 will get you a very handy player at the draft still.
I do think your easiest trade would be, and if you actually look at the value calculator, potentially you could do 7 for 9 and 20. Now, 20 in this year's draft is a second rounder, but it would be a first rounder because 4 of them minimum will be NGA swaps. So swaps that are pushing other players back. So that 20 will effectively be as valuable as a first rounder in this draft. So you could potentially move 2 down. And particularly if Carlton are looking, Oakley Chargers, as always, have got about 20 blokes in the draft this year. About 8 of them are small forwards as well. So for me, why I didn't pick a small forward in my bargain bin is every year, top 2 out of 5 are small forwards that went between 20 and 40. They're always a plethora. It's probably the easiest position on the park to play. We've got Eddie Betts there for me as a huge mentor. Might as well use him as well. Might as well use him because I expect big things off Josh Honey this year. Big things. I think it's going to be a big year for one of these smalls. And I do predict our team will back these young smalls in. I really do think Josh Honey will get a big chance. What do you think?
Agree, mate. We saw Josh Honey this year. I was very excited ahead of his debut. I think a lot of people were. If he turns into the player that we all think that he might be, it might take him a little bit of time to come on a little bit. But if he turns into that player that we think he's going to be, who's just genuinely electric at ground level, and has really, really clean hands, maybe we don't need a small forward right now. But if he doesn't, then we're looking quite bare. So.
Paul Barbaza here, the pumper. He's just said we won't take a pick number 7. I agree with him. I would be shocked to see us take anyone in the first rounder for the next 2 years. To be honest, I would be genuinely surprised. And I think I'm looking forward to Trade Radio with Sauce because I really get the impression last year all this indecision with Agresta saying one thing, Liddell saying another. I think that screwed his trade plans. I get a big feeling. It was last year we were going to throw picks at the problem as well. And I think this year I do feel sorry for Sauce because I think it would have been interesting to see how Sauce finished off his cake because he built a good cake. We just need that icing. So for me, Nick Austin's got the easiest but hardest job in football now because the hard work is done for him. But if he slightly screws this up, I wouldn't want to be Nick Austin. But we have run out of time. I thank everyone who's commented. You've been absolutely brilliant. And as always, your love and support goes a long way. Big thank you to Joe. He's gone.
Start on, Pom, before you pop me. Later this week, guys, stay tuned from later this week to the channel. There's going to be there's so much content coming your way for the off season. We've got Dan and Terry doing player reviews. We've got player profile spotlights for like what we did tonight with players from other clubs. I'll be doing some write-ups. Young Ari is going to help me out with a few more write-ups. Plenty coming your way, guys. Plenty coming your way. So stay tuned to Blue Abroad.
Well, he's ruined my intro. I was going to say big thanks to Joe from stepping out of the paper room to do it here. Big shout out to young Ari as well. His pieces are absolutely brilliant, and they do keep young Joe on his toes because for a 16-year-old, they're splendid. But Joe, you're always loved. Thank you very much. I've been Paul.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much for the love, everyone.
Go Blues.